Jesse Livermore. To many, he was the greatest trader who ever lived. Across a career spanning 4 decades, he amassed and lost several multi-million-dollar fortunes. He was a man who lived by his own rules and died by them. Today, we dive deep into his full story, not just the wins, but the technical mastery and the psychological discipline that built his legend. Over the next 12 minutes, we will dissect the life, the rules, and the ruin of the Great Bear of Wall Street. Born in 1877 on a small struggling farm in Shrewsbury, Massachusetts, young Jesse Livermore was a boy with an extraordinary gift for numbers. While his father saw a farmer, Jesse saw the world as a giant math problem. He could calculate complex figures in his head before he could read a newspaper. At 14, unable to accept a life behind a plow, he fled to Boston with just $5 given to him by his mother, his first stake in the market of life. In Boston, he found work as a board boy at the brokerage firm Payne Weber. His job was simple: listen to the ticker tape and update the stock prices on a giant chalkboard. But Jesse didn't just write numbers, he memorized them. He began to notice that certain price movements always preceded a larger move. He started keeping a book of behavior, recording the patterns of the tape before he even knew what the companies did. He was learning the language of the tape, a language no one else could hear. At 15, he made his first trade in a bucket shop, illegal gambling dens where men bet on price fluctuations without owning the stocks. He turned a $5 tip into a $3.12 profit. By the time he was 21, he had turned his original $5 into $10,000, the equivalent of over $300,000 today. He had earned the nickname the Boy Plunger and was banned from almost every bucket shop in the Northeast for winning too consistently. He had mastered the small game. Now it was time for New York. Livermore arrived in New York to conquer the big board, but the real market was different from the bucket shops. The delay between the ticker tape and the actual floor price meant his old systems failed. Within months, he had lost everything. This was his first great lesson. There is nothing like losing all you have in the world for teaching you what not to do. He realized he wasn't just trading numbers. He was trading against the slippage of reality. He went back to the bucket shops to rebuild his stake, returning to New York a more disciplined and cautious man. The panic of 1907 was Jesse's first major masterstroke. As the market collapsed, he shorted with a ferocity that earned him $3 million in a single day. He was so powerful that J.P. Morgan, the titan of Wall Street, reportedly sent a personal message to Livermore, asking him to stop shorting to prevent a total national collapse. Jesse complied, and then pivoted to buy at the bottom, realizing that his power now carried massive responsibility. He had become a force of nature on the street. He proved that one man with a clear head could outtrade the giants of finance. Livermore's success was built on his 21 rules of speculation. Rule number 1 was always the trend. Never trade against the trend, he preached. He believed that the market's direction was the only opinion that mattered. For Jesse, the market was never wrong. Only the trader's opinion was. He would wait for the market to confirm its direction before committing a single dollar, a level of patience that few could match. He taught us that the big money is not in the individual fluctuations, but in the main movements, the great tides of the market that lift or sink all ships. Master the trend, and you master the market. His most technical rule was the pivotal point. This was the price level where a stock was poised for a major move. If it broke through with volume, the trend was confirmed. He taught that the key to timing was not guessing the bottom or the top, but waiting for the pivotal point to prove the move was real. This required intense focus and the ability to ignore the noise of daily fluctuations. He would sit with his ticker tape for hours, watching for these specific price points to activate. It was a mathematical and psychological barrier that, once crossed, signaled the path of least resistance. Jesse also pioneered the theory of sister stocks. He believed that a stock never moves alone. He would watch the leaders of a sector to understand the health of the entire industry. If the leader didn't move, he wouldn't trade the secondary stocks. This research-based approach separated the professionals from the gamblers. For modern traders, this means watching the giants like Apple or Tesla to understand the broader market's health. He taught that the market moves in groups and you must follow the leaders. If you cannot see the trend in the leaders, stay away from the followers. This was his rule of coordination. The big money is not in the individual trades, but in the sitting. This was perhaps his most famous saying. Livermore realized that once a trend was established, the hardest part was doing nothing. He would sit for months, letting his profits run while others were shaken out by minor corrections. This emotional discipline, the ability to wait, is what separated the masters from the amateurs. He famously spent entire seasons on his yacht, the Anita, staying out of the market when the setups weren't perfect. He knew that the market was always there, but your capital was not. Wait for the big move, and then have the courage to sit with it. Fear and greed were the two enemies Jesse fought every day. He taught that hope is a dangerous emotion in the market. When you hope the market will turn, you are already lost. He believed in cutting losses immediately. His 10% rule was non-negotiable. For Livermore, trading was a cold mathematical business that required a healthy body and a clear, unemotional mind. He would often say that the speculator's biggest enemy is the person in the mirror. Control yourself, and you can control the tape. If you cannot master your own emotions, you have no business in the market. The tape is a reflection of human nature, and nature is often cruel to the weak. By the late 1920s, the American economy was intoxicated by a bubble that seemed to have no end. Everyone from shoeshine boys to bankers was buying on margin. But Jesse saw the signs of exhaustion. He noticed the sister stocks were failing to follow the giants to new highs. In September 1929, he began quietly building a massive short position. He risked his entire $100 million fortune on the belief that the greatest bull market in history was about to die. He stood alone while the world partied, watching the leadership of the market crumble under its own weight. The music was stopping, and he was the only one who heard the silence. October 29, 1929, Black Tuesday. The market fell apart. Billions of dollars in wealth vanished in hours. Panic gripped Wall Street as the ticker fell behind by hours, leaving traders in the dark. Livermore watched from his office, a cold, focused observer of the chaos. By the end of the week, he had earned $100 million, an unimaginable sum equivalent to over $1 billion today. He was the Great Bear, the master of the crash. While the nation wept, his rules had made him the wealthiest man on the street. It was the ultimate validation of his life's work, but it would also be his ultimate burden. But his victory made him a national pariah. He received death threats and was blamed for the nation's suffering. The weight of this public hatred, combined with the onset of the Great Depression, began to erode his legendary focus. The market landscape was shifting with new regulations like the Glass-Steagall Act, and the liquidity that Jesse relied on was vanishing. The peak of his wealth was also the beginning of his final psychological descent. The man who mastered the market could no longer master the public's perception. He found himself a target in a world that no longer respected the speculator. His silence was seen as guilt, and his wealth as a crime. The 1930s were years of grinding personal and financial loss. Lawsuits, family tragedies, and 3 marriages took a heavy toll on his focus and his capital. The boy plunger was losing his edge in a market that no longer behaved like the one he had mastered. His old rules were being tested by a market that seemed to have no bottom. By 1934, just 5 years after his greatest win, Jesse Livermore was forced to file for bankruptcy for the 4th and final time. He was a titan out of time, struggling to find his footing in a world that had moved past him. The man who saw everything could no longer see a way out. On November 28, 1940, at the age of 63, Jesse Livermore's journey ended at his own hand in the Sherry Netherland Hotel. He left behind a brief note and a legacy that would inspire generations. He had lived the speculator's dream and suffered its ultimate nightmare. But while the man was gone, his story was about to become the ultimate textbook for every trader who would follow. He had lived by the sword of speculation and died by it, leaving behind a roadmap of the peaks and the pits of the human heart. His final trade was with life itself, and the market finally closed its books on the Great Bear. His book, Reminiscences of a Stock Operator, remains the most read trading book in history. Why? Because while technology changes, human psychology, the fear, the greed, and the hope, remains constant. He taught us that you don't beat the market, you master yourself. He left us a roadmap of the peaks and the pitfalls, a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit in the face of uncertainty. For every beginner staring at a chart today, his life is the ultimate masterclass. Study the Great Bear, honor the rules, master the market, because the tape never lies, but the human heart often does. This book is his immortal voice, speaking to every trader across the century. Jesse Livermore, the greatest speculator, a name that will live as long as the market itself. Thank you for joining us for this definitive 12-minute masterclass. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel for more trading deep dives. Until next time, keep your eyes on the tape and your ego in check. Study the legacy, honor the rules, and master the market. The Great Bear may be gone, but his voice still speaks to us through every tick of the tape. Thank you for watching.